She was told the human would arrive at precisely the seventh chime of the royal spire, and so she stood in the ceremonial hall of glinting stone and alien fire, trying to hold her breath steady, trying not to let her fingers tremble, but her tail coiled and uncoiled around her ankles, betraying her every secret, her every racing thought. They said humans were dangerous. They said they were unpredictable. They said they should never be underestimated. And yet here, she was waiting to meet one not as an enemy, not as a prisoner, but as a guest and perhaps something more. The heavy doors opened with a thrum of ancient engines, and a line of guards marched in silent rhythm before parting down the middle. And she saw him. He was taller than she imagined, his form clad in gray and black, his face unreadable, but calm eyes sharp like plasma blades, and as they locked eyes, she felt a strange surge of something. She could not describe, something hot and cold and terrifying. He stopped before her, standing still, no bow, no words, just watching her, and that made it worse, so much worse. She had practiced her greeting in front of the mirror 1,000 times. She had rehearsed every syllable of her native tongue and his, and yet now with him right in front of her, she felt her throat tighten. She wanted to look composed, to look like royalty, to look like the daughter of 1,000 kings, but her knees felt like jelly and her mind like dust. "Welcome," she finally said, her voice a little too high, a little too fast. The human nodded once. "Thank you, princess." His voice was steady, deep, unshaken, and it made her chest flutter dangerously. She took a small breath, tried to ease the tightness in her chest, and then gestured toward the stone path lined with glowing leaves. "Walk with me," she said, and he fell into step beside her. She hated how aware she was of his presence, his movements, the sound of his boots against the floor. She had met warriors from 100 species, but none made her feel like this. None made her feel like she might say something foolish or trip over her own tail, or worse, blush. She could feel her cheeks heating up already and curse her skin for betraying her again. They walked in silence for a time, the air humming with tension, or maybe just her nerves. She tried to focus on the gardens, the silver petals, the gentle from the sky, but her eyes kept darting back to him, his face unreadable, his expression calm. Was he judging her? Was he amused? Was he bored? She had no idea, and the not knowing made her panic quietly. "Tell me, soldier," she said, trying to sound confident. "Where are you from?" He turned his head just slightly and answered Earthman the way he said it, so simply, so plainly, almost made her stumble. She repeated, as if tasting the word. "And what is it like?" His eyes flicked to her, then away again, quiet, peaceful. Now the word now hung in the air like a shadow, and she wondered what he had done before peace returned. "You do not fear me?" she asked, unable to stop the question from leaving her lips. He raised an eyebrow. "No, ma'am." Should I? She looked away, trying to hide the way her tail twitched. "No," she said quietly, then added, "I am not used to that. Everyone fears royalty." He was silent for a moment, then said, "Maybe they fear the crown, not the person." She looked at him, eyes wide. "You do not speak like a soldier," she said. He shrugged slightly. "Most soldiers don't meet alien princesses," he said, and something about the way he said it, the dry humor, the calmness of it, made her chest twist again. Was this what fascination felt like, or danger, or both? She did not know. She only knew that her pulse had not slowed once since he arrived. They reached the crystal bridge and paused. The view beyond was stars and drifting moons and silence. She leaned on the rail, letting the cold stone bite into her palms, and said softly, "Why are you really here?" The human looked out over the stars for a moment, then answered, "Peace, ma'am. To protect it." She nodded slowly, thinking of the wars, the lost ships, the fallen cities. "And you do not hate us?" she asked again. He shook his head. "No, ma'am. Just try and make sure we don't end up fighting again." She looked at him, really looked at him then, and something shifted in her, something deeper than nerves, deeper than fear. She saw a man, not a monster, not a warrior, but someone who carried the weight of things like she did, someone who might understand what it meant to be stared at, judged, worshipped, and feared all at once. "You are different," she said before she could stop herself, and his lips curled just a little maybe. "So are you, ma'am," and that did her face burn so hot. She thought her markings might glow. She turned away, hoping he didn't notice, but of course he did. She heard the quiet laugh, low and warm, and her tail twitched in embarrassment. "You are laughing at me," she said accusingly. He held up a hand. "No, ma'am. Just surprise. Most beings try to impress me with weapons, not blushes." She gasped, mortified, then laughed despite herself, a soft, awkward sound that made her feel lightheaded. "You are impossible," she muttered, and he smiled just a little again. "Maybe, ma'am." They stood together in that silence, the stars still wheeling above, the air cooler, now her heart still racing. But for different reasons. Maybe it was a mystery of him, or the way he said "ma'am," like it was both respect and challenge. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, not like royalty, not like an alien, but like a person, and in that look she felt more seen than she had in years. When they returned to hall, her advisors waited, their expressions unreadable. The human bowed respectfully, and she nodded back, perhaps a little too quickly, her tail betraying her once more. And when he turned to leave, she almost called after him, but stopped the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she watched him go, feeling the echo of his presence like a pulse in the air. Once he was gone, she exhaled slowly, deeply, and leaned against the stone wall, letting her legs finally tremble, letting her breath finally shudder out her chest. The guard said nothing. The ministers said nothing, but they all knew. They had seen it. They had seen her struggle. They had seen the flush on her cheeks and the tremor in her hands, and none of it mattered because she was still the princess. And tomorrow, she would meet him again, and the day after Anne. Maybe she would not tremble so much next time. But tonight she lay awake in her chamber, staring at the stars, remembering his eyes, his voice, the way he looked at her, and not the crown. And she knew she was in trouble, the kind of trouble no training could fix, the kind of trouble that only came when a human soldier walks into your world and leaves you breathless.